The girl who asked the right question too late. Here's a question I want you to sit with for a second. If someone you loved got into a stranger's car tonight, thinking it was the ride they ordered, how long would it take you to even notice something was wrong? For one family, the answer was 20 minutes, and by the time they were sure, it was already too late to stop what came next. This is the story of a law student 3 weeks from starting the career she'd worked her whole life for. A stranger circling the same 4 blocks looking for exactly the kind of person she was. And one sentence, a rule so simple, it now saves lives every single night across the country. Welcome to Buried Truth Crime. If cases like this matter to you, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe. We post a new one every single day. Let's get into it. Her name was Samantha Josephson, 21 years old, raised in New Jersey, now in her final year at the University of South Carolina in Columbia. She wasn't the kind of student who coasted through college waiting for the next party. She waited tables to help pay her own way, built her class schedule around her shifts so she'd never show up exhausted, and just days before the night that changed everything, she opened an email that told her she'd been accepted into law school. Her plan wasn't vague. She wanted to be an attorney, specifically so she could help people who couldn't help themselves. Her father had given her one rule, and only one, when she moved away for school. She could use his card for a ride home at any hour of the night, no spending limit attached, on a single condition. It had to be through a verified rideshare app, never a stranger, never a guess. For 3 years, she followed that rule without a single exception. That detail matters more than almost anything else in this story, because it tells you this wasn't a case of someone taking a foolish risk. It was the opposite. She did everything right, and it still wasn't enough. On the other side of the same city was a 25-year-old named Nathaniel Rowland. He had no steady job, had dropped out of school as a teenager, and was supported almost entirely by his girlfriend, who worked long shifts at a fast food restaurant to keep their household afloat while he spent his days doing very little that could be called legal. Weeks before this story reaches its worst moment, Rowland and another man had already tested a version of the exact crime that was coming. They forced their way into a woman's car at an intersection, made her drive to an automated teller machine, and took what they could carry from her home afterward. This wasn't a man snapping in a moment of panic. It was a method he had already used once and clearly believed he could use again. The night in question was a Thursday, the 28th of March, 2019. Samantha was out in 5 Points, the strip of bars and restaurants that practically every student at the university knows, celebrating her law school acceptance with friends. She had a shift the next morning, so this was never going to be a late night for her. A few blocks away, Rowland was doing slow, repeated laps in a black Chevrolet Impala, circling the exact area where the odds of finding someone alone and waiting for a ride were highest. Just after 2 in the morning, Samantha's actual rideshare driver was minutes from her location, but a mismatch in the pickup pin meant he couldn't find her in the crowd outside the bar. He waited the required amount of time, gave up, and canceled the ride to move on to his next fare. Samantha never saw the cancellation notice. She was still standing at the curb, watching the headlights of car after car pass by, waiting for the one she believed was coming for her. That's the exact moment Rowland drove past and saw her. A young woman standing alone, clearly waiting on a ride with no one else nearby. He circled back around the block and pulled up directly in front of her. She leaned toward the darkened window and asked the question that has since become the center of an entire national safety campaign. "Are you here for Samantha?" He didn't need to say a word. He only had to nod. She opened the back door and got in. The moment that door locked, there was no simple way back out. Her boyfriend, more than an hour and a half away, was watching her location on a tracking app the two of them had used for years. At first, the route looked like nothing more than a strange detour. Maybe a closed road, maybe a wrong turn. But the car kept moving in the wrong direction, farther and farther from her apartment. He called her. It rang and rang with no answer. He called again. Nothing. After roughly 20 minutes of continuous movement away from where she should have been headed, the signal disappeared completely. Not slowed down, not delayed, gone. He immediately contacted her roommates, who confirmed the one thing that told him this wasn't a simple misunderstanding. In 3 years together, she had never once stopped sharing her location in the middle of the night without saying something first. By sunrise, when Samantha failed to show up for her restaurant shift, something she had never done before in her life, her friends didn't wait around or assume there was a mandatory waiting period before reporting someone missing. They went straight to the bar where she had spent the night before and asked to see the outside security cameras. What they found on that footage turned a missing persons case into a citywide emergency within hours. Samantha, standing on the sidewalk, exchanging a few words with a driver, and climbing into the back seat of a black sedan that pulled away and never came back into view. That single clip is what allowed police to issue an alert for the vehicle almost immediately. Officers flooded the same nightlife district, and in what should have been the last place a driver in a wanted car would dare to return to, one officer spotted the black Impala doing slow, casual circuits through the crowd, as if absolutely nothing had happened. The stop revealed the strong smell of marijuana coming from inside the car, which gave the officer legal grounds to search the vehicle. And the moment Roland understood that this traffic stop was actually connected to a missing woman, his composure disappeared. He ran. He didn't get far before backup officers caught up with him in a nearby alley. In the interrogation room, his story fell apart almost as quickly as it was invented. First, he claimed to be suffering from a sudden, severe illness that made it impossible for him to answer questions, a claim a medical examination disproved within minutes. Then he changed course entirely, insisting he had loaned his car to a friend that night, a friend whose name he could never quite remember, at parties whose addresses he also couldn't recall. While Roland kept changing his account, investigators were already reconstructing a version of events that didn't need his cooperation at all. Bank records showed repeated attempts to withdraw cash using Samantha's card throughout the night. Every single one declined without the correct personal identification number. An employee at a local phone store identified him from surveillance footage as the man who had tried to sell a phone in a distinctive pink case. A search of the abandoned car turned up a piece of mail that led detectives directly to the address where Roland had actually been staying, and from there, physical evidence tied him unmistakably to what had happened to Samantha. Some of the most damning testimony at trial didn't come from a lab report. It came from his girlfriend, describing that same morning in painfully ordinary detail, handing her a work uniform that was still soaking wet, a sun visor from the car that he claimed had gone missing because it had blood on it, and an unmistakable smell of cleaning products filling the inside of a car that should have smelled like nothing at all. Samantha was found later that same day in a rural field roughly an hour and 20 minutes outside the city, in an area Roland had known since he was a child. When the trial finally opened in the summer of 2021, the defense argued that the physical evidence didn't add up the way prosecutors claimed. The jury disagreed, and they didn't take long to say so. After roughly 1 hour of deliberation, they returned a verdict. Nathaniel Roland was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He offered no apology, no explanation, nothing at all, as he was led away. Samantha's parents didn't stop when the verdict came down. They founded a nonprofit organization in her memory and began pushing, state by state, for real changes to rideshare safety laws. Because of that effort, multiple states have since passed legislation requiring rideshare vehicles to display clearer identification, including scannable codes that confirm a driver's identity before a passenger ever opens the door. But the change that has probably reached the most people isn't a law at all. It's a habit, one sentence long, and free for anyone to use tonight. Before you say your own name to a driver waiting at the curb, make them say it first. Ask them, "What's my name?" If they can't answer immediately and correctly, don't get in. Wait for the next car. It really was that simple for Samantha. One mismatched pickup location, one driver who happened to be circling the right block at exactly the wrong moment, one assumption that a silent nod was the same thing as a real answer. That small gap between what looked safe and what actually was safe is the entire reason this case is still being taught in safety campaigns years later. If this story affected you the way it affected me while researching it, do 3 things before you go. Hit like so more people find this channel and these cases keep getting told. Drop a comment and let me know what stood out to you most. Was it the 20 minutes on the tracking app or the 4 words that gave everything away? And subscribe to Buried Truth Crime because we post a brand new case every single day And you don't want to miss the next one. Stay safe out there, ask the right question before you open that door, and I'll see you in the next video.